Thank you. Several small businesses in Green Bay today receiving a visit from the sister of Vice President Kamala Harris.
Maya Harris is in Wisconsin to announce a new coalition of more than 100 small businesses endorsing the Harris Walls campaign. She also took some time to speak with voters. Chief political reporter Jason Zimmerman was with Harris as she made those stops and has this First Alert exclusive.
For those working at Pedal Pusher in Green Bay, Maya Harris walking through the front door is now a memory no one here will soon forget, especially the owner, Nicole Campbell.
When we took the first phone call, I was actually offsite setting up an event, and Nicole took the call, and it was like, what? You know, this moment of disbelief, like, really? Yeah, we're game for that. We'd love to have that visit.
The sister of Vice President Kamala Harris came to Green Bay making several stops, starting at Pedal Pusher and moving on to Carvana Coffee House, where one voter asked about efforts to get Democrats and Republicans to work together.
We're clearly so much stronger in our communities, in our families, in our country when we are together and united as opposed to divided. That's what gives me hope. Honestly, the American people give me hope.
One of the economic proposals Harris is endorsing would expand the startup deduction for small businesses from $5,000 to $50,000 and provide low to no interest loans for small businesses looking to expand. On the final stop at Maine Oriental Market, Harris sat for lunch with the owner and other local Democrats.
Being able to get so close to, who is potentially going to be the next president of the United States, be able to meet her sister, and they obviously they look very similar as well. That you can tell that they are very excited. I'm excited too.
Back at the flower shop, Campbell also spoke about the impact of the visit, especially through the eyes of a woman.
It's a big moment for me personally, as a female business owner. Again, that's exciting to be acknowledged by women in those roles. Makes me feel good, and I think it's exciting for our staff to get to see that in person, is an opportunity who thinks you're going to get to have. That's just exciting in itself.
On Monday, vice presidential candidate and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz will also be in the area. Details on that event are still being worked out. Reporting in Green Bay, Jason Zimmerman, Action 2 News.
The state Republicans gave Action 2 News a statement addressing Maya Harris's visit, saying, quote, Wisconsin small businesses have endured high interest rates, runaway inflation, and a supply chain crisis thanks to the gross incompetence of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. Maya Harris briefly stopping in Green Bay means nothing to the thousands of business owners and workers whose savings and long-term goals were undercut by failed Democrat policies, end quote.